here at the Fleming, and it's my distinct pleasure to welcome you tonight for a talk by Jansen, whose stunning photographs are featured in our special exhibition, Jansen 1008. After the talk, there will be an opportunity for museum members to meet Catherine while enjoying savory samosas and sweet ladoos from Parvin's Kitchen. So it's a great time to take advantage of your membership or to purchase one. I would purchase one for these. The exhibition will also be open for half an hour after the end of the talk. So if you haven't seen the exhibition yet, that's a great time for anyone to go enjoy it. And you have another month and a half to do so. You can make it tonight. Catherine Jansen has been inventing, exploring, and creating photographic processes that merge state-of-the-art technology with traditional photography since the late 1960s. She is a BFA from the Cranbrook Academy of Art and an MFA from the Tyler School of Art at Temple University. And she has taught at Drexel University and Bucks County Community College. She is a recipient of the National Endowment for the Arts Grant, 2 Pennsylvania Council of the Arts grants, and 2 Cultural Incentive grants. She is exhibited at and is in the permanent collections of the Philadelphia Museum of Art, the James A. Michener Museum of Art in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, the Honolulu Museum of Art, sounds like a nice place to visit, and the Center for Creative Photography in Tucson, Arizona, and now the Fleming Museum of Art, thanks to a generous partial gift from Catherine. Over the last few decades, Jansen has traveled to India at least 27 times, creating a series of images she gathered together in her artist book 1008, which you can peruse in the gallery or purchase in the lobby, and which form the basis of this exhibition. In addition to her artistic endeavors there, Catherine has been working in Varanasi, India for over 15 years, helping to send children to school and to take care of street animals through the organizations Friends of Varanasi and Dogs of the Ganges. Catherine has been an amazing and gracious collaborator and partner in the creation of this exhibition, and I want to thank her for that. I also wanted to say that as curators, sometimes we get caught up in the nitty-gritty of planning an exhibition and forget about the work, and so it's been such a distinct joy to see people discover and encounter Catherine's photographs and be struck by how beautiful they are, just as we all were when we first encountered them. So please join me in welcoming Catherine.
I would like to take a moment and thank all of you for coming out in this wet evening, and I would like to especially thank the Fleming Museum, who has been beyond gracious and flexible and generous in putting this show together, and I hope you'll have an opportunity to go and look at it if you haven't already seen it. So today I wanted to talk about a couple of things, but I wanted to be focused on the idea of beauty and the role it plays in the human life. And I'd like to start with a little story. It happens in a 2nd grade class. A little girl is given crayons and she's just painting away and scribbling, and the teacher notices her and she goes up to her and she says, "Honey, what are you doing?" And she says, "I'm drawing a picture of God." And so the teacher said, "But nobody knows what God looks like." And she says, "Well, just tell them to wait a minute and they'll be able to know." So when I started this body of work, I started realizing the role that beauty and my attraction to beauty played in the type of images I picked and the places I went. And I wanted that to be sort of my muse to lead me where I needed to go. And at first I thought I was looking for beauty. And then as I unveiled it more, I realized you can't really look for beauty. Beauty finds you. You can only make yourself available. And so how do you make yourself available? Well, one way is you quiet your mind, you get rid of expectations, you get rid of any prejudices you think or agenda, and you let it just come to you in its own fashion. And it will come in very surprising ways. But I do think the more you open yourself up to it, the more visits it will pay you. And so that was sort of my little formulae for working with this body of work. I would go out in the mornings wherever I was in India after doing some meditation. I would, excuse me, I would just start walking around. Wasn't going anywhere in particular, didn't want to take something in particular, and then things would just start happening. And as they happened, I would start clicking, 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 clicking. And at some point, I'd like to tell you about some of the techniques I used, but I'd like to start, oops, let's give you a picture. That's always nice to have a picture. So this is in Varanasi, India, which is where I lived a lot of the time, and then I would take side trips. But the first category or body of work I'd like to show you within this body of work is the elephants. Because as Westerners, we don't have too much access to elephants. But in India, you can actually get very close and cozy with them. So I would go places and someone would say, oh, they saw an elephant. And then I would try to track it down. And I would ask a rickshaw driver, anybody I could find who would tell me, where is the elephant? And then I would go find the elephant, and I might follow it all day, 4 or 5 hours, until I was exhausted. And then I would go to bed, get another rickshaw, go back to my room, then get up the next morning and go out again. So what I started finding out, because I knew nothing about elephants, is that there are a lot of rituals. Can you hear me all right? There are a lot of rituals in India where elephants are bathed, dressed in beautiful costumes, painted, prayed over. Ceremonies are done, and they walk through the streets and bless the people. So can you imagine you live in a poor little area of India, and the elephant actually comes down the street representing the god Ganesh, and, excuse me, I have to have a little water, and you come out and you get this incredible blessing. So what I would like to do is show you a set of slides. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I will talk about a few of them. And then after this set, I'd leave a couple of minutes if you have any questions about this set. Or at the end, we can also talk, but I just know that I'm going to be showing you a lot of things, and you might not have an opportunity to remember everything if we don't give you a chance in between the cracks to ask a question. So let's move forward. So elephants are in temples. This is the back of a temple. And the Mohans, the men who take care of the elephants, oftentimes let me go and watch them bathe them. I sort of became a friend of theirs in some way. They saw me there so much, they said, oh, just let her come. And I would get to go in the back and watch them do all their... But what I was most interested is this relationship between the Mohan and the elephant. They live together about 15 or 16 hours a day, sometimes for 20 years, 30 years, and they really do have a great bond. And elephant's eyes are tiny, but can you see its eye over there? It's really, really looking at the at his companion. I don't think it's so easy to photograph love. I don't even know how you do it, but every once in a while when it appears in front of you, it's just such a blessing. And so sometimes I would wait in the shadows for hours because I knew this thing was happening, but I didn't quite get it in the way that would communicate it. Sometimes they seem like still lifes almost, all these colors and, you know, just standing there in a courtyard. Now, most elephants in India that are used are female elephants. And one day when I was passing this elephant and I saw these boys and they were just absolutely, you know, kind of frantically standing and twitching and all, and then I realized that what was going on. I'm not going to point it out to you, but I think you can see. get a good sense of scale here. Now, I'd like to say a little bit about beauty because I probably should have said it more at the beginning, but I think as humans, that's you and me, Homo sapiens, are hardwired to experience beauty. And I'm interested not so much in the object of beauty, but the verb of beauty, being in that state of feeling and experiencing beauty. And it's such a startlingly exceptional thing that when you think about it, it has the ability to destroy separation. And when we really are experiencing beauty, we don't feel me and that, we feel connected to everything. It has a way of giving us a much more spacious and conscious experience of one way of thinking and looking at life. And so as beings, we're very programmed to delight in it, to be grateful for it, and really to want it in our lives. And there's a wonderful conference on YouTube with the Dalai Lama and some Nobel Prize physicists and social workers, and they talked about all the research that was done on beauty and and compassion and those qualities, and people who have more of that in their life, who encourage that in their life, their brains stay more flexible, more youthful, and they stay creative a lot longer in life. So it's good for us to have that experience, and it's good for us to encourage it to come into our lives and to point it out to the people that we love, maybe our children, our grandchildren, because it's one of the great gifts. I don't know why it was given to us, but it definitely was, and I don't think anyone has not had that experience. It's so intrinsic to the human way of being on the planet. So would anyone like to just ask one or two questions about the elephant pictures, and then if not, I'd like to move forward because I have a lot of things to show you.
Where were they taken?
They're taken all over India, but most of them are in Kerala, which is southern India. Some in Pondicherry. Yeah.
And why are there so many elephants? Why do they keep them?
Well, because Ganesh, one of their beloved gods, who's the god who gets rid of all obstacles, is in the form of an elephant. And so it symbolizes Ganesh. So it's like the god Ganesh has come and given you a visit. Okay, let's go on, and then if you have another question at the end, we can do a little bit more. Cows. From elephants to cows. So the first thing I'd like you to see is a little video. It's 2 minutes, and one of my students from Arcadia this summer put it together. And it's an email that I wrote to some friends about following cows, just like I did the elephants. Well, in Varanasi, I decided that one of my things was I was just going to follow cows around and see really where they're going, what they're doing, and how people are treating them, because it was kind of a mystery. And I try not to read too much in advance because then I'm going to have this preconceived idea of what I'm supposed to see. So I just said, okay, let's just follow the cows, see what happens. So let's just look at this very short video, and then I'll show you the pictures I made from the cows. The light comes early now, and knowing that there will be only a few hours cool enough to photograph, I took a rickshaw to the furthest ghat from where I was living. This very ancient part of the city is a maze of alleyways and streets, and because of its intrinsic confusion, it is believed that this area of the city can't be tracked even by GPS systems. When I go there, I always enjoy letting myself get lost in this jigsaw of steps, temples, ruins, and alleys. The little streets, too tight for cars, still manage to get terrorized by a few motorcycles. But fortunately, for some of the alleys, they are too small even for the motorcycles. Mainly, only people and animals walked its cobblestones. It does not take long to get totally lost, and then I no longer recognize anything. I just start following my feet, photographing whatever appeared.
It was like photographing a film that I had walked into. A doorway opened into what looked like a tiny ancient temple. Peeking in, there was a huge cow eating from a rock bowl. The cow, weighing several 100 pounds, was so tremendous that it seemed to fill the whole room. Behind the cow, in a larger room, a man and his 2 sons were preparing food in iron kettles over dung fires. With a single nod, I got his attention and an okay to photograph the cow, and then went over to talk with him. At this angle, which was from my side, I could see that the cow was walking backwards out into the streets. Excitedly, I called, "Guy, Guy, by Jate Hai." The man laughed and motioned not to worry. "She goes to the street," he says, waving his hands towards the street with a big smile. Getting a strong urge to follow, I said a quick goodbye and proceeded for the rest of the morning to trail this huge, gentle beast. With a swaying motion, rocking her plump udders from left to right, right to left, the cow slowly navigated through the streets. I followed silently behind, as if watching a film evolved. It was a mystery film. Where will she go? What will she do? She passed some stores with food, and the owners half-heartedly yelled the cow away. They even pretended to throw rocks at her with empty hands. Further on, a young man in a western shirt gave the cow an affectionate pat as he walked by, and then touched his hand to his third eye. Out of an ancient dwelling, an old lady appeared at a doorway with a small bowl cupped in her hands, and the cow went over to her, climbed with her front feet delicately up the stairs to the doorway, and very gently ate from the hand-cupped bowl, gave a little bow, and shuffled backwards off the steps and continued her journey down the street. Some street dogs let her move past them without even barking. They must know this lady. When a motorcycle tried to get around her, she went close to the side of the building to let it pass. Others, mainly older women, stopped just to pranam her with their hands or touch her flanks or her womb, then touched their hand to their heart or third eye. For them, she was a walking temple. Others seemed scared of her and moved away, flapping their hands to scare her away. The cow proceeded carefully, and at moments looked confused, not knowing what response she would evoke. I realized, camera in hand, that the cow had assumed her early morning role of mindless stroller, and I had become the silent witness, watching its every move. As we moved along, others brought food or kumkum for her head. We did this for quite a long time, then I felt the heat. As the sun moved higher into the sky, even the narrow shaded streets could not hold back the sun, and at one of the turns, the cow discovered a pile of peelings that would keep her occupied for a long time. At this pause, the thought arose in my mind that there still might be some leftovers from breakfast at the school, so I, taking a moment to give the cow a little bow and a smile, patting her flanks, and headed back to what the Indians call the best tea of the day, which is always the first in the morning.
So you can see that cows in a way have a life similar to stray dogs. And they figure out how to get back to their homes. And because there are mixed feelings in the culture of these very big animals coming around, all kinds of things can happen. So I'm going to show you some images that I feel like take it over a step from a snapshot into art, and using the cow or the water buffalo or one of its close relatives, just to show you how I perceived and worked with this particular imagery while I was there. This is an image that took me 4 years to get, because these birds would go to these water buffalo and pick the bugs off of them. But one morning when I turned the corner, this one saw the birds and then just surrendered to them like this. And then they came and it looked like they were kissing her. And in the background there was this man talking on the phone and some crazy thing. It was so surreal and so dreamlike that I said, that's what I've been waiting for. That's the Ganges River in the background. This cow is singing literally to the the sun coming up in the morning. This is high up in the Himalayas. That's a Brahmin bull. Here they become almost a landscape. I love the tenderness between the interspecies, so whenever I see that, I try to capture it. This was one of the first pictures that I photographed in such a way that it looks three-dimensional. It looks like the buffalo's actually coming out. And that required taking many pictures at different angles and then piecing them together with Photoshop. So this one's coming out and the other's going in. The normal camera lens cannot do that. And this is a cow palace. Sometimes the places that were used as little chapels and stuff are converted to places to keep the cows. This is another cow palace. This is an ashram. This is a holy area of the city, and they have a little baby cow there. There's a little blessing, and people will come and bring it food or pet it or whatever. They are allowed everywhere. If they want to walk in your house, they'll do that. They go in stores and sit down. It's against the law to injure a cow, to hit one with your car. They're given a lot of respect. This is a little boy about 4 or 5 years old, and there are about 20 huge water buffalo he's leading through the streets and through this little alley. These cows met on the street and knew each other. So I don't think I have to say any more. It says it all, doesn't it? Okay, so maybe a couple of questions or 1 or 2 questions about cows?
The first one with the baby on the coastline,
Yeah.
the white little round things with the brown house?
That's kind of unusual because they're eggs, and most Hindus don't deal with eggs, anything animal. And so it must have been a special sect, and there were little wickered lights around there. So by the time I got there, there were these eggs that were laid out like an offering to the river, and these little candle wicks that had been burned. And a mother cow just gave birth to this little baby cow. And it looks like a lamb. And I thought, this is such a Christian image in a Hindu country. And that's what was very touching about that to me. And that's in the show if you want to see it a little bit better. Is there anything else that might come up as a curiosity? Okay, we'll move forward then. HAMPI, this is one of the most beautiful cities I had ever been to. It's the perfect combination of man-made temples and nature's boulders and rocks. And they seem to merge together in an absolutely beautiful way. There's a river that runs through it. Many people don't go here because it's very hard to get to. So you'll find the normal tourist in India, maybe who's even been there 4 or 5 times, hasn't been to HAMPI. But it's definitely worth going to. Can you see these boulders everywhere? And then these beautiful temples interspersed between them? And they have a resident elephant in the temple that you can take peanuts or coins. And I think I have another photograph where he's actually blessing someone who's come with an offering. Yeah, there he is. She gave him some peanuts and he's blessing her head. And I think this is a little video. I just hit it one more time. So in the morning, they walk the elephant down from the temple, down steps, into the river. And you can go right there with it. And the next little video, which is 20 or 30 seconds, you'll see that visitors, Westerners, are invited to come in and massage and help clean the elephant. See how nicely he knows how to get low down so he can be scrubbed up. And then we'll look at this one. And notice on the left, that woman, Westerner, she just went right in and was helping them. And this is a photograph of her and her hand next to the elephant, the woman who was bathing her. It's really one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. Very, very magical and otherworldly. Okay. Any questions about HAMPI?
I'm just curious, so did you just have an initial desire to check out India and then you fell in love with it and you kept going back? Can you tell us a little bit about how
It all happened? Well, I didn't go to HAMPI until maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I've been going to India 20-something times. But I kept on hearing about it, and every time travelers saying, oh, HAMPI's so beautiful, and I ask people, what's the favorite place you've been to? And these are backpackers who, really get into the nitty-gritty of it. And many times HAMPI came up. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to go, but it was complicated to get there. You can either take an all-day train or an all-night bus. If you take the all-night bus, you get there in the morning, you can start working, right? So I said, okay, I'll do the bus. I didn't know about this until, I never know anything until it happens, which I like because I'm a little fresher. So I get on the bus, all the seats have been taken out of the bus and they have foam rubber down and you're supposed to lay on the foam rubber and sleep. Well, that's okay, they're little curtains. As soon as the bus got about an hour outside of Goa, which is where I was at the time, it got so rocky that I had to hold on to the poles all night. I had my whole body like this because it was just like this. I'm thinking, what's the matter with this bus? When I got to HAMPI, I realized the roads are so rough and there's so many rocks. It's the road that's the problem. And so I was not feeling like I got any sleep that night, but it was still worth it to get there. And then I just walk around. I feel like the best way to do it is just kind of go intuitively, go right if it feels that way, go left, get lost a lot. I love getting lost because I know I can always find somebody who will point to the city or the river or that sort of thing. That's just one of the things I really love doing is getting lost there, not here in America, but there.
The red on the ridge snout of the elephant, is that blood or is that?
No, that's a bindi, and you'll see it on people's faces, and sometimes children put it on their favorite animals. And it represents the light you see when you meditate, and if your spiritual energy moves up to the Ajna chakra, which is right here, you see that red, that orangey red. And a lot of the holy people wear that color as well to represent that holy spot, the third eye opening. Okay, let's just move forward because I'd like to get through all of them, but I don't want to let you miss anything, any good treats afterwards. So PUSCAR is also an amazingly beautiful city. It's the only city that has a temple to the god Brahman, who is one of the major gods. And it has no river because it's right in the desert, and it has no lake, so there are these man-made lakes. And there are all these buildings, and if you walk through the buildings, you'll get to an area that looks like this. And these are all man-made ghats, which is where people go and do spiritual practices. And it's loaded with animals, and people go there and they feed the animals because it's considered a blessing if you feed animals. And pay attention to that little mountain there because I'm going to show you something about that mountain down the road. This place had the most specialized light I've ever seen. There are places in France where, you know, the Impressionists used to say the light's unique. Well, this place seemed to have that same unique light. Brahman is the god of creation. Varanasi, which is where I spend most of my time, is the home of Shiva, who's the god of destruction. So you have to create, sustain, and destroy for the life circle to happen. So they're the three main gods. Now you see another situation where he's touching the flanks of the cow. The first time I ever saw this, I was walking down the street in Varanasi with a Brahmin woman who was very educated, and she was dressed Western, and she leans down and touches a pregnant cow that's laying on the street. She touches its big stomach, and then she puts her hand to her heart and to her head. And I said, "What does that mean?" And she says, "I'm honoring new life coming into the world." Okay.
Do you speak several dialects for communication?
Excuse me?
Do you speak many dialects for communication?
Unfortunately and fortunately, I do not.
So if you get lost in a small place, then you speak English to these people?
Or I know enough of, Kitharhe, where there's 40 different languages spoken in India too, so that's an issue. But I usually can make myself known, where do I go? Sometimes I say, where is Ma Ganga, Mother Ganges? I try to say it in respectful ways. People are much more helpful when you really honor what's important to them. I just try to I go out of my way to do that. So yeah, I do that. So remember I mentioned that mountain that you saw in PUSCAR?
I think someone had a question.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, I can take it.
One more question?
Sure.
Could you explain the format of your photography? Is it, I think maybe you explained it already. Is it a panorama format?
Okay. Can we do that? And would you remind me at the end of this? And then there's also a very clear video in the gallery that's all about technique, because I did develop this technique. It's my own language that I sort of developed visually. So I just want to make sure I have enough time to do it properly. So please re-remind me. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So remember I mentioned that there was a mountain in PUSCAR. So this whole city is devoted to the god Brahman, and on that mountain is a temple to one of his wives. So it's a goddess temple. So what I decided to do is go there. I went early in the morning when it was just getting to be light, and I started walking up. And so when you look at these, think about these. As I walk up, you're seeing this fog, and things are coming out towards you, and then more fog. Very, very lovely kind of walk up. And when we eventually get to the temple, you're going to see it's been there so long it actually has become part of the landscape. That's the temple. How nice, you don't know if you go there. I'm sorry I showed it to you in case you get to walk up there sometime. This is the temple. And then inside there's a deity of the goddess. That's probably self-explanatory. So that's right. And by the way, when you get to the top, you look down, all you see is desert. And if there's going to be a big festival, a camel festival, then you might see lines of animals coming towards that center point to the great Brahmin full moon festival, where all the herdsmen, all the Wahhabi tribesmen and nomads come and bring their livestock. It's sort of like a convention, and they sell them, and they just get to meet their buddies. And it's during the full moon, usually in November. That's called the Brahmin's full moon. And I always wanted to photograph in the desert, but I know they're private, and the thought of me going out there by myself, everybody said, oh no, don't do it, da 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 da. So one year, the vets who were doing a free camel veterinary camp in the desert for that event invited me to come and help. And so I rather connivingly thought, I want to go anyway, but if the tribesmen see me there, they might get used to me, and then when I walk out in the desert, they will be fine with me. And that's exactly what happened. I always wanted to have that kind of freedom. So here I am at the camp. And then this is something many vets have never seen, but when the camels get mad, they display this organ in their mouth to scare away whoever's bothering them. I think this one was getting a shot. But it's an interesting image if you know anything about India. There's a very classic story of Krishna, who is a little baby, and he's doing some mischievous things, and he was eating all the butter. And his mother caught him, and he says, no, 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 I'm not eating it. And she says, you open your mouth, let me see. So he opens his mouth, and when she looks in, she sees the whole universe. And so when I saw this, I thought, just like Krishna. And I'm going to tell you a story about these metal plates, so just pay attention to them for just a second. And when I went into the desert, into these little encampments, as you can see, and just the nomads and what they were doing, they let me come in. They just ignored me, which was the best. I became like, invisible in a way. And I got to kind of see how they cooked, see how they took care of their animals. I thought the scale in this was kind of phenomenal. That's a Rabari. He's sharing some marijuana with one of his animals. I think you can see how this camel feels about his companion. They have thousands and thousands of animals that come through during that time period. So let me backtrack 50 years. Hold this in your mind. I'm 7 years old. I'm watching television, and I see a National Geographic special, and there's a woman with blonde hair, very suntan, very beautiful, and she's being interviewed. And the interviewer is asking her questions because she's been traveling in India, in the Thar Desert, which is where this is, with the Rabari people, and she's telling about all of her adventures. And in the background, while she's talking, I see this man, and it looks like he's milking the camel. And I was thinking, can camels be milked? And then he takes a metal cup, stainless steel metal cup, and he brings over a cup of frothy, fresh camel milk for her to taste. Okay, so can I take you back to the desert 50 years later? Completely forgot about it. I'm in the desert. I'm photographing. I'm being ignored, I thought. All of a sudden, I see this behind me, a man milking a camel, and it's starting to, that seems familiar. What is that about? All of a sudden, he brings me a cup of frothy milk. So that's the magic in many, many ways that India has had for me.
How does it taste?
It's pretty good. They make ice cream out of it too. And these are some of the men bathing at the water hole. Let me see. Any questions about?
How does the water get pumped? Is it pumped again?
You know, the government brings it in big water trucks because it's just, years can go by, there's no rain. So there's things in certain places and they know where they are. And if they get desperate, I'm sure they try to find it naturally. They know to come there and then they'll most likely have the water.
Was it very noisy, that picture with all the camels? Are they noisy?
You know, they really aren't. It's kind of peaceful. Yeah. Okay, can we go forward a little bit more? Okay, so JASSALMIER is another beautiful city, one of my favorites, and it's at the very west of India, at the edge of the desert. And it's a World Heritage Site, honeycombed fort, birds, all kinds of animals everywhere, people living like they've lived for hundreds of years. This is on the top of the fort. I got a room up there and looking down over the the city. And of course I explored the fort, but I could see in the distance it looked like there was something. So I would go down in the morning and I found this body of water. It's man-made and it's a reservoir where they store the water because it can be 6 years without any rainfall. And so this is a very holy place. And many animals, these are wild boar, are there, they're ducks, they're all kinds of, I'm thinking geese and dogs and cows and everything. And people go there in the mornings to feed the animals. This is a custom all over India. And once again, that's considered a blessing. So, now this is a photograph that took me 2 trips to make. I first photographed everything I needed in it, went back, it didn't work. And the next year, I took the 26-hour train ride from Varanasi back to there just for the one photograph, because I just got obsessed. And the reason I love this photograph is, see that pool in the middle? If you throw bread in there, they're catfish, and they get so excited, they literally go 2 or 3 levels up, just frantically to get it. And so this is another of that particular. It took many, many photographs to get the whole sense of the place, and this is what the catfish look like up close. And some of the interiors, I thought the colors are particularly beautiful. Okay, so that's JASSALMIER. Any questions about that? Okay, DADEE is a really good friend of mine. She might be 90 or older. She lives in Varanasi. And every morning when I walk to the Ganga, my Ganga, to just see what's happening, I walk by her little hut, and she has a blind cow that she takes care of. So we've become friends. You know, I pass her so many times. I wave. You know, I might even poke my head into the thing, see how everything's doing. I'll take little scraps of things for her cow. Well, one day I was in a big hurry, and I passed her hut and turned this road. And you know how you get that strong feeling, go back, go back, go back? So I went back, and she had a cloth over her doorway. I opened it, and there was a fire. She takes the dung from the cow, puts it on a wall, dries it out, and then they make little fires. And in the winter, inside the hut, her blind cow and she sit by this fire, this dung fire. So I walked in this, and I love seeing it. It's just so sweet to see it. So anyway, I walked in, and she also puts a blanket on the cow to keep it warm. And her back was to the cow, it was facing the fire, and the blanket had gotten on fire. And the flames, and she couldn't see it. And of course the cow probably didn't know what was going on, didn't know how to get attention. So I start screaming, Agni, Agni, Pani, Pani, fire, water. And then I run over, I rip the blanket off, and I'm stepping on it. And then all the neighbors come in with buckets of water, and on and on and on. And we, you know, take care of that. And that gave us another level of intimacy, as you can imagine. So I've always felt really, really close to Dottie. I'm going to show you the pictures in a second. That's that's my favorite photograph that I did not take, but it's in my mind forever. One day I'm going out to the river, and Dottie's standing there, and she's really tiny. She comes about here to me, and she has a big, I don't want to leave my microphone if you can hear me, she has a huge stick in her hand, and there's a Brahmin bull higher than she is, snorting and its foot, you know how they do this? And she's standing there, no, no. And immediately I got that her blind cow, the Brahmin bull is trying to mate with her blind cow. And she doesn't want this to happen. So she's, with these very funny sounds, she's, and she's getting the cow to get behind her, and the cow's understanding, and she works it into the little courtyard where her hut is, and then there's a gate there, so she backs herself, and meanwhile the bull is going crazy, and she finally gets the cow in, she gets in, closes the door, and the bull starts bamming and bamming, and he is so furious, and I'm just standing there like, oh my gosh, and then he turns around angry. By the way, Varanasi is one of the few places where animals use the old method of procreating, because they're usually artificial inseminated all over the world. But whoever walks by, if it's the right timing, so that's, on the street you see these humongous bulls impregnating cows and that sort of thing. But anyway, or fighting over a cow, I'll show you a picture of that too. So anyway, this bull is very, very angry. And at that time of year, there's the Sarveshwari festival. She's the goddess of culture and music and art. And the neighbors in each neighborhood set up a tent, and they put a paper mache structure of Sarveshwari on a pedestal. Very beautiful, feminine, you know, lovely. So this bull sees another bull, and they go at it, at each other. I guess the other bull, since that cow was in whatever you would call it, and they end up in the tent. And there are these two bulls, male bulls, and this beautiful female. That I got. So let me show you. This is the street that I would walk on, and I know the street like you know a street when you're a child. Every crack, every street dog. This is how the street looks. Animals live in the homes or next to the homes of the people. That's Dottie, and that's her blind cow. And that's one of her blind cow babies. And this is Dottie in her little hut with her blind cow. And this is her with her little fire. And these are the bulls fighting over the deity in the background. A lot of symbolism there if you want to read into it, I feel. And here, just on the side of the road one day, this was going on. And these are some of the children from Little Star School in the same neighborhood. They had put little discarded sweaters on the goats to keep them warm. Okay, so let me see. Oh, okay, this will be very quick. We're sort of running this like a little video because there's so many slides. But there's the most important and largest of all the religious holidays in India. It's every 12 years. It's been going on for thousands of years. It's prescribed in the Vedas to happen in a certain way, and it happens that way every year. And I always wanted to go to it, but it's very difficult to get to because the one I did go to, which I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes, were 50 million people there in a small town. So you can imagine the complications. And what's the chance of seeing anything? Mainly you'll just be seeing the shoulders of each other. So I took 3 students with me from Drexel University. I didn't tell them too much because I didn't want them to be disappointed. We took a long train ride to the site. about one city away, because there were no places to stay right in Hardwar. We stayed in Rishikesh. We went one day to figure it out. Nobody knew anything. In India, by the way, there's no organization. No one knows anything. And so I said, okay, we just better come and wing it. So the next morning, we left the first bus that was going there, which was about 3 in the morning, and it wouldn't take us into the city because all the public transportation was stopped because they knew a lot of people were coming. It happened to be Shivaratri, which is a holiday on top of a holiday. And I'd heard that the Nagis, who were the naked, most austere of all the spiritual sects in India, that they are given the privilege of walking first into the Ganges. And when you go into the Ganges at this time of year, not only do you dissolve your own, what would you say, misbehaving, but also you give blessings to the whole planet. And it's really, the only way they know what's going on is the satellites actually are monitoring it because it's so many people. So we got to Hardwar. A man let me get on one of his buildings. I asked, can I go to your roof? He let me go up. Meanwhile, the girls still don't know what's going on. They think I'm a little crazy. And I'm looking around trying to figure out, what's going on. And I see in the distance this beige, big amount of beige. And I'm thinking, could that possibly be naked Nagis? And then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I think it is. And not only that, where they were, the street was going to lead right in front of where we were. Then I look around, as a good photographer would, and the light is perfect. If I'd been on the other side of the street, I couldn't have gotten it, too many shadows. So I said, girls, get your cameras ready. What's going on? What's going on? So within moments, there is what I call the March of the Nakeds, where thousands of nude holy men come walking down on their way to the Ganges. So this is going to be in a faster format because we're short on time, but please bear with me. I think you'll get the sense of how it went. I'm on top of this roof up here looking down.
What God was watching over you to put you in that spot.
Exactly. No, you couldn't make that happen if you were Fellini and had $1 million crew. That's what I kept on saying. They have holy white ash on them and marigolds, very beautiful to see. And they're very innocent sect. They're celibates, and they just live very, very simple, austere lives. You're lucky if you see one and you travel to India a lot of times.
Are they chanting? Or?
Not really. They're just marching. Sometimes they say, Om Namah Shivaya or Hare Om or something like that. But and at moments they will separate and do some martial arts because they used to be the martial artists of the country. And in the Homer and the Iliad, the Greeks actually mentioned the naked holy men of India who guard the borders. So this has been going on a long time. There are 1 million of them in India, and you'll never hardly see them. And then I came down from the roof and I started talking with them. I started getting closer and interacting a little bit. After the Nagis pass, there will be some other types of holy men who have ashrams and devotees, and they look much more elaborate. I'll point them out. Here they made a circle, so they're doing some martial arts, like little performances as they're walking by. Here they're breaking the ligaments of their penises to celebrate their celibacy, which is something that's very auspicious to do at the Kumbh Mela. I just wanted you to get a feel of the flow of them passing by me, and I could have done a whole talk on them, but I think you get a sense of what this is like. Must have been exactly the same way 2,000 years ago. This has been going on forever. It has that ancient quality about it, and you're going to see some other more elaborate holy men coming with their entourage in a few minutes. Oh, see his hand up, it's kind of curled. He's held that hand up as a remembrance to God, and it just loses all of its ability to move. So here you see a few more elaborate people coming. There are a lot of respect for these men in India, but there's a lot of fear around them. And here they are going into the Ganges. So.
Say a lot of fear also.
Yes, because they can do black magic and all kinds of things like that. And the Indians seem to be some hold back, with that. So what I wanted to show you, I've shown you so many images of India, and maybe you'll say, well, they're India, of course. So I want to show you some images I'm taking from my new body of work, which is called Mother Home. And I'm just taking images from either my garden or my home, or if I take a quick vacation, I might do that. So this is a still life. I have bug collections in my house. I lived in Italy for a long time, so I go back every once in a while.
Where is home for you?
Pennsylvania. Have a shell collection. And this is right outside my kitchen window, and those are all fireflies in July. Now, do we have enough time? How are we doing? Do I have 2 more minutes, or?
Just finish this.
Just finish this, okay. So, Rumi, who's my favorite mystical poet, said if we could really rip the prejudices and the indifference from our eyes, that even a leopard would seem beautiful to us. So there's a leopard colony in Varanasi, and I visit them quite often. And this man is called Upar, and he told me the last time I was there, he said, he looked so happy that day, and I said, what's going on? And he said, do you know who Jesus is? Now, this was weird because this is a Hindu place. And I said, oh yes, I know Jesus. He says, well, when I was dreaming at night, he taught me a song, and every time I sing the song, he comes to me every morning, and he said, would you like me to sing the song? And I said, yes. So this is Upar. I'm going to pass through these a little quickly because we don't have time. This is Upar singing his song to Jesus.
Do you ever work with a translator?
Sometimes I take translators here. I do because I want more in depth. And I just would like to end with another quote by Rumi. He says, let the beauty that we are be what we do. There are 1,000 ways to bow and kiss the earth. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you so much for coming. And we're gonna have snacks, Indian snacks, so if anybody wants to just grab me and ask me something, I'm there.
Do you want to take
Oh,
any questions?
Can I take another one? Okay, good. Yes, let me tell you about the technique. What I figured out is that we as humans don't see things flat. The camera sees things flat because it's from one point of view. So we see like this. So when I photograph something, I photograph like a filmmaker. I go right, left, center, left, top, 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 bottom, 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 and more. And then I take them and I piece them together so that it feels more like either they're going in or they're coming out. And there's a certain emotional and spiritual intimacy that I think it makes available, where just that flat view from the camera really has an invisible shield there that doesn't let you go too far. That's one thing I do. And the other thing I do is, because I taught for a long time, and I noticed that male students tend to photograph big spacious areas, the hunter space, the protection space. Women tend to photograph arm's length, caretaker, berries, picking berries, twigs. It's in our DNA. And when you hand a male or female a camera, don't tell them this, you'll find that maybe 70% will tend to photograph in a traditional female point of view of the world or a male point. So what I wanted to do was set up something called intimate immensities, which is both the male and the female. So a lot of my images have something very close up and intimate, and also that wide overview. And so those are the two main techniques. I do some other things that I sort of develop for this body of work, because I want the viewer to feel intimately engaged with it, not just to see what happened. Yes?
The horizontal
Right.
frame, do you use that in all your work or just this?
Mainly in this, because it requires it to do the circular. It's not that it's horizontal, it's really circular. And it also allows me to do the expansive and the intimate. So it's the perfect format for that. But I do a lot of work, I think you saw some in the Mother Home, that, you know, if it's more appropriate, I'll use another format. And there are lots of little videos, by the way, in the gallery on different subjects that you might, and most of these aren't in the gallery if you haven't been to the gallery, so you get a whole new set of images, and then it sort of talks about them. You can just press a button and I have a 2 or 3 minute video that'll explain some of the stuff.
Thank you all so much. Please join us in the lobby for snacks or take in the show in the gallery. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Catherine.
Where's my